celebrating 48 years on the air. Award-winning Farm Week is a production of Mississippi State University Extension.
Today on Farm Week, a field day in Monticello, Mississippi, a memorial to a man who left us far too soon. In Southern Gardening, an elegant white glove landscape treatment in Grenada, Mississippi. In our main feature, CRP compliance around the nation, how did Mississippi fare? And a somber holiday coming up, a Memorial Day tribute to those who paid the ultimate price. Farm Week starts right now.
Hello everyone, I'm Zach Ashmore.
And I'm Mike Russell. Great to have you with us again here on Farm Week. If you've watched Farm Week at all over the years, you've heard of Hortense and Bubba Bass, known by many around the state as selfless, giving tree farm owners who held field day after field day on their property in Monticello, Mississippi. In 2017, my former co-anchor Leighton Spann featured them on Farm Week. Bubba passed away not long after. Recently, after nearly 7 years, Hortense hosted what will likely be her last field day, a memorial of sorts to her late husband on his birthday in late April. I was honored to be invited. Here's just a little of what I experienced that day.
The field days and the things we do with the kids, we do that for us, not the kids. That's just one of the benefits, because we enjoy it more than they do, I'm sure.
A few gentle words from Bubba Bass in 2017, just a few months before he passed away. He and his wife Hortense acquired their land, ultimately some 350 acres in Lawrence County, in 1975. It had been in Bubba's family since the 1800s, and over the years the two made a habit of hosting young children, doing everything in their power to help those kids learn about and appreciate everything their land had to offer. Bubba and Hortense thought of it as a community family affair.
So then they're not competing for oxygen or water or nutrients that they need.
Today, another big crowd on the Bass Tree Farm. Almost 700 people attended, including hundreds of fifth graders and longtime friends and colleagues.
It's just, just seeing the children learning from all of this, because they're getting to see things that they don't get to see at school. You see, it's an outing for them to learn different things about nature. They're learning what God has given us, being outdoors and learning the different things about the land, the artifacts. Like today we have a biologist, we have a soil scientist, we have gun safety, we have just a variety of different events for them to learn that they don't get to see. And look at them, they're not with their cell phones, you see. They're just, look how excited they are. They're learning.
You get to truly have an impact on kids, because we're always surprised, or I'm always surprised at how little interaction they have with wildlife. So it's an opportunity to kind of teach kids very basic concepts about wildlife, introduce them to the wildlife that's indigenous to their area and encounters that they may have. And it's kind of fun getting to see their eyes light up when they learn certain things about wildlife.
Are firearms dangerous?
Yes, sir.
Who said, you said no, didn't you?
It's a multifaceted adventure for the kids, learning everything from firearm safety.
When we set up the flight mission, it flew each one of these flight lines, one direction and then the other.
To forestry technology, to wild hog trapping. Everywhere you looked, kids were learning and having fun. Needless to say, a day like today takes a lot of work. It always did. And consulting forester Stephen Dickey, longtime arborist for the Bass Tree Farm, was quick to give credit where it's due.
I would say it's pretty special. Only Hortense Bass could pull something like this off. This many kids, this many supervisors and government officials, and in Monticello, Mississippi, unbelievable.
What would Bubba think about today?
Oh, he'd be smiling. He's smiling from heaven. He's smiling. Because this is what we cater to. We cater to, having the children come to the farm and so they could learn about the nature.
Quite an event there in Monticello. Congratulations to Hortense Bass, like Steve Dickey said in that piece, for being able to put together such a large event. Kids came from as far away as Louisiana, Tennessee, and Texas. I'm sure Bubba was smiling from heaven. And thanks to the Lawrence County Press for its coverage of Farm Week in a recent issue, we're honored to be mentioned.
A little touch of white adds a touch of class to just about any landscape. This week in Southern Gardening, Eddie Smith is in Grenada with his white glove treatment.
Today, Southern Gardening is in Grenada, Mississippi, admiring a stunning array of white flowering plants. Let's take a closer look at some of these beautiful selections. One of my favorites, the native flowering dogwood, is a cherished understory tree known for its elegant white blooms in early spring. Its distinctive white or pink bracts surround small, inconspicuous flowers, creating a breathtaking display before the foliage emerges. Typically reaching 15 to 30 feet in height, this tree thrives in partial shade, making it a standout in woodland settings and shaded landscapes. Evergreen azaleas with white blooms also flourish in partial shade, brightening gardens with their crisp flowers in early spring. As a member of the rhododendron genus, these azaleas retain their glossy, deep green foliage throughout the year, adding lasting beauty to southern landscapes. Some varieties even provide an extra burst of blooms in the fall. For sunny spots, the snowball viburnum is a showstopper. This striking deciduous shrub is known for its large, globe-shaped flower clusters that resemble hydrangeas. In spring, its blossoms emerge as pale green before maturing into brilliant white spheres, some reaching up to 8 inches in diameter. The result is a dramatic and eye-catching display. As you can see, white flowering plants brings a touch of elegance and charm to landscapes. I'm Eddie Smith, and I look forward to seeing you next time on Southern Gardening.
We'll take a short break, but stick around. Coming up in these days of Doge are America's counties in line on CRP. Under the program, no more than 25% of the nation's eligible cropland is allowed in CRP, but in a study, 35 USA counties were in violation. One in Georgia had more than 3 times the limit. Millions of dollars are paid out. Is there a pattern? And where does Mississippi stand? CRP compliance, that's coming up on Farm Week. Don't go away.
I believe in people and their hopes, their aspirations and their faith. I believe in my own work and in the opportunity I have to make my life useful to humanity. I believe that education is a lifelong process, and the greatest university is the home. That my success as a teacher is proportional to those qualities of mind and spirit that give me welcome entrance to the homes of the families that I serve. Because I believe these things, I am an extension professional.
I believe in people and their hopes, their aspirations and their faith. I believe that education, of which extension work is an essential part, is basic in stimulating individual initiative, self-determination, and leadership. I believe that these are the keys to democracy and that people, when given facts they understand, will act not only in their self-interest but also in the interest of society. I believe in intellectual freedom to search for and present the truth without bias and with courteous tolerance towards the views of others. Because I believe these things, I am an extension professional.
Time for the market report, another WASD, and one with an apparent impact.
At least that's what our expert is telling us. We'll get into the details of that and some tariffs. But first, this month's WASD report, we dive into the details of what it had to say. And then in our row report, Dr. Will Maples gives us the implications of the report and an update on how the tariff talks look from an ag perspective. So, this month's WASD was not really a big surprise. Normally this time of year, these reports can make waves, but this one was different. Row crops faring the best, but some movement in livestock as well. Bella Bingham gives us the details.
U.S. wheat supplies looking up. High current stocks offset lower production this year, which is down 3%. Food use also up, while season average farm price down by 0.20 cents at $5.30 per bushel. Global wheat supplies and production raised nearly 5 million tons and about 809 million tons respectively. Largest outputs from Europe, China, India, Argentina, and Canada. Consumption increased slightly, mostly in food, seed, and industrial use. U.S. corn crop looking to be one of the largest on record, projecting supplies higher as well. Corn use also up by 1%, mostly on food, seed, and industrial use. Season average farm price $4.20 per bushel. Global corn also showing a record production. It's a big year for corn, it seems, while consumption also up exponentially to the extent that it exceeds production. As a result, world-ending stocks projected to fall. U.S. rice production slightly lower than last year, mostly due to less long-grain production. All rice yield also down, however with record imports and heavy stocks, supplies are still high. Season average farm price $13.20 per hundredweight. Global rice production at a record, with the largest increases coming from Asia. Consumption also high, as is trade. U.S. soybean crop lower due to less acreage and supplies down slightly. However, crush is expected to increase along with meal exports. Ending stocks projected down 55 million tons. Season average farm price $10.25 per bushel. Global soybean production up slightly as well, with Brazil, Paraguay, Russia, and China showing the largest increases. Crush up 3% and exports projected to increase 4%. U.S. red meat and poultry production projected lower, beef mostly due to lower dressed weight and an import ban from Mexico due to New World screwworm. Poultry and egg production slowly recovering from bird flu and future projections look encouraging. Milk production looks more encouraging, projected to increase due to expanding herd and higher milk per cow. Dairy products projected to lower in price. All milk price forecast to be $21.15 per hundredweight. U.S. cotton acreage expected to increase while yield expected to be lower than last year. Exports looking up, however, due to an increase in global demand, season average farm price 62 cents per pound. Global cotton consumption up slightly, trade also up by over 5%, while ending stocks slightly lower.
So now you have the context. What are the experts saying the biggest takeaways are? I spoke with MSU Extension economist Dr. Will Maples to get his take, and he says the report is not surprising. He also gives us an update on tariffs and how they could affect ag.
We got the newest WASD report here in May. This is, one of the biggest ones of the year because this is the first look we get at USDA's official estimates for the upcoming crop year. So for this 2025 crop that's currently getting planted, what are our supply and demand estimates going forward? And kind of the biggest takeaway is there really were no surprises in this report. Sometimes this one can come with surprises, move the market. This one was pretty much in line with what expectations were. Positive from it, we're looking at a lot more bullish soybean market. So we've talked before about, probably we're decreasing soybean acres this year, just given where prices are compared to corn. And in the report, we're looking at 295 million bushels of ending stocks on soybeans, which is a really good ending stocks number for soybeans. We're down below that 300 million level, and that's based on trendline yields, which we might not beat. So kind of as the first report on soybeans, it's a little bit more bullish market, a little bit more price supportive, which we needed right now in these economic times. On the corn side, it was bearish as expected. We're planting a lot of corn this year, and kind of where ending stocks are. We're still below that 3 billion bushels on ending stocks of corn with these numbers. 2 billion bushels of ending stock of corn, this number, which is good. That's helpful. Once we get over that 2 billion, that's when we start worrying. But there's still going to be a lot of corn on the market. It's kind of, unfortunately, planting is slow in some of the southern corn belt states, which when it comes to yield, planting is slowed given all the wet weather we've seen. That's going to be a hard yield number to attain. So as we go through the growing season, seeing what kind of yield we actually end up at the national level, we could see those stocks come down, more price supportive market on the corn side.
And speaking of trade, that you had mentioned to me before we started that there was some big trade news that you've been getting a lot of, you've been having to give out a lot of advice on.
Yeah, so if anybody's watched the news over the last, month, 2 months, trade has been at the forefront. From an ag perspective, U.S. ag needs international markets for farmers to make a living. We export 50% of our soybeans every year, 20% of our corn, over 90% of our cotton. So trade agreements, tariffs, that all has a great impact on ag. From our initial announcements, we've seen a lot more negotiations going on. We've seen from, the original tariffs that were announced by President Trump, they've come back. They've got this 90-day agreement with China right now. So we're seeing some more positive signs around trade. And it seems like China's willing to come to the table and negotiate, which hopefully ag is going to be in there as part of that negotiation. They'll have to buy ag products. And if they can pull that off, that would be definitely a boon for our commodities.
And that's it for a deeper look into the markets. Mike?
Thanks, Zach. There is no question that these days government programs are a target for investigations into fraud and abuse. Conservation Reserve is used to keep environmentally sensitive acreage out of crop production. But how many acres are enrolled and receiving payments are under the watchful eye of the FSA. Colleen Bradford-Krantz of our news partner Market to Market has more.
The 1985 Farm Bill, which established the modern version of the Conservation Reserve Program, dictated that no county could have more than 25% of its eligible cropland acres enrolled in the program. Later, the Wetland Reserve Program came into existence as another voluntary program designed to protect environmentally sensitive areas. And those acres are to be included when calculating total enrolled.
Part of the concern about this program and some of its predecessor programs in the 30s and the 50s was if you take too many acres out of production, you're really going to hurt rural communities. They're going to lose, the production. They're going to, you're not going to have grain going to the elevator. You're not going to have farmers going in and buying supplies and other things there in town.
It was trying to find a balance, right, of what's a number that we think still meets those environmental goals and encourages those types of uses and programs, but also isn't going to receive pushback from local, rural, urban communities because they're afraid of what it means for their economic resources within the community.
Market to Market filed an open records request to obtain county-level data from the federal government in an effort to ascertain how well the U.S. complies with its rule. Our investigation revealed that for 2019, the sample year, the nation's counties generally succeeded at remaining under the 25% maximum. Only about 1%, or 35 counties nationwide, were in violation that year. Nationwide, that meant 244,000 excess acres were enrolled. If that's multiplied by the $63 per acre national average payment at the time, the estimated total overpaid would have been about $15 million. But experts say the excess spent would have at least had a positive societal benefit, protecting soil and water.
Overall, I don't know that it's a miss, because if the goal is preserving land, it's all of this money is still going to keeping fragile land out of production, protecting it, working towards those issues.
Jonathan Koppas says it's important to remember that the conservation programs, managed by USDA's Farm Service Agency, benefit all Americans indirectly. CRP is a voluntary program where farmers are paid to take land, much of it environmentally sensitive, out of production.
At the end of the day, those $50 million are still putting in conservation practices on the land and doing some good. And so I think there's always a difference there's always an important distinction between some of the payments we do and what we're trying to do with conservation.
A pattern emerged in a few states where several counties were in violation of the rule. Colorado, Texas, Georgia, and Louisiana each had 4 or more counties that exceeded the 25% limit. 11 other states had 1 to 4 counties in violation. We created an interactive map on our website, markettomarket.org, where you can click on each state and see county-level data. 2 examples where counties violated the 25% rule by a long distance were in Camden County, Georgia, where 320% of eligible acres were reported as being enrolled, and Mineral County, Colorado at 142%. This suggests that ground not considered eligible as cropland was enrolled. A visit to the USDA office that serves Camden County, Georgia, provided little information as to how more than 3 times the eligible acres were enrolled. An official there said he was uncertain as to how it happened. Bailey County, Texas, was reported as having the greatest excess in terms of total acres enrolled beyond the allowed limit. It enrolled 47,393 extra acres, landing at a total of 37%. That means that if the amount paid to landowners was in the lower payment range of $50 per acre, an excess of $2.3 million was spent in just that county. According to USDA, Douglas County, Washington had 43,824 additional acres enrolled in an area where CRP per acre payments were closer to $100. That enrollment of 32% of eligible acres would mean the government spent an excess of about $4.3 million in that county. Zwagerman says it's worth noting that federal policy does allow counties to be granted exemptions to the 25% rule. Neither officials with the individual counties nor the USDA media team mentioned this being the case for these particular counties. The USDA media team did send an email response saying FSA works to comply with federal policy and uses software to help counties remain in compliance. The results, they say, are better as of this year. It said, as of March 2025, only 2 counties slightly exceed the 25% cropland enrollment limitation. FSA is continuing its work to bring counties into compliance. It's unclear whether the same software now used was in place prior to Market's request.
I think it's a fascinating finding, and I mean, being kind of a nerd on this stuff, I think it's great when it's helping them. It's a feedback loop into how they're operating the program. So if they're making improvements like that, it's running very well to begin with, and they're improving on top of that. I think that's overall a great example, particularly at a time when there's a lot of focus on kind of beating up federal employees and agencies. It's not like we couldn't use a little good news here and there.
In the most recent report just a few days ago, all 82 Mississippi counties were under the limit, most of them quite a bit so. Well, next week, Zach has a special story from the other side of the world.
You may not know it, but Italy is a major producer of citrus, and one location there is famous for its lemons, Sorrento. It wasn't always that way, but through clever ag practices and a dedication to quality, these fruits have become a staple product of the Amalfi Coast region. My trip to the old country, next time on Farm Week.
Before we go, as an Air Force veteran, I'm once again honored to help close this week's show in a different way with a Memorial Day tribute.
And coming from a military family, I'd like to add that with so much happening in the world, we can't forget to take a moment and pay our respects to those in uniform who gave everything in service to this country.
38 years ago, President Ronald Reagan gave the Memorial Day message you're about to hear. We last brought you this tribute in 2023, but felt especially this year, as our country nears its 250th birthday, that it deserved to be seen once again.
And so, with President Reagan's powerful words, we end our show today by saying thank you to those who paid the highest price.
This Memorial Day, we remember with solemn pride and gratitude America's sons and daughters who have paid the ultimate price for the preservation of freedom. From the shot heard round the world that marked our birth as a nation, Americans have time and again taken up arms in liberty's defense. Knowing the ferocity of war and the immensity of the sacrifice it exacts, they have nonetheless followed the spirit of our founders, who pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor to the support of freedom. The debt we owe to those who have left home and family to serve this cause is beyond measure. But our greatest debt of all is to those who fell in battle. Their ranks are legion, the stories of their heroism countless. Many of them lie beneath the soil of distant lands, and many here at home. Their final bivouac may be a well-kept cemetery or an unknown, unmarked field or lane or shore, but glory guards each one well. These heroes who fought with all the faith and valor that free men can muster. Oliver Wendell Holmes expressed a fitting thought when he said, "At the grave of a hero, we end not with sorrow at the inevitable loss, but with the contagion of his courage." I join all of you who proudly share that spirit in your own service to our nation as you pay tribute to these brave Americans. May we always walk in the light of their memory, the light of liberty which shines from age to age and still illumines the way forward. God bless you, and God bless America.